We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. You asked for it. Here it is.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Welcome along to NUFC Matters, and it is that's right. Ask George. And George,
hello, everybody.
Good afternoon. Just over an hour till Newcastle kick off at Fulham. I'm not at the game today, which gives us a good opportunity to do this. We'll look ahead to the game a little bit later on. But if anyone's got a question out there for George, get it in. Stick it in the chat below, and we will endeavour to come to it. We have got a couple of early ones in, and one of them was from Neil in Dubai. I
wonder who that is.
So Neil's question was, why would no one stand next to you when you were watching Neil play?
Oh, God. Because I'm a terrible spectator when it comes to be family, and even worse, loser. I used to go with the family. I used to go to 2 granddads and a couple of uncles, and we used to pile in the car and go and watch Neil on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning. And they would be at the far corner, and I'd be as far away from them as they possibly could. I'd be on my own, and I'd be conducting the game. I couldn't help myself. You know, I'd be shouting on the pitch, do this, do that, do the other. One memorable occasion Neil will definitely remember, and he'll be he'll be shying when I tell you this. We went to a match at Blythe. We were playing Blythe, one of the Blythe junior sides anyway. And we got there a bit late. The game had kicked off. And throughout the match, I was losing my rag with the referee because the referee was a homer. You know, it was absolutely disgrace. And of course, like I am, I had to have me say. And I kept shouting from the touchline. And at half time, I had to have a go at him and say, what the bloody hell are you doing? You know, there's 2 teams in the game. And then the game went on, and at the end, as it happened, Neil's youth club won, and that was great. And at the end, I had to go at the ref and say, I don't know what you were doing, but that was awful. And then somebody said his name. Thanks for refereeing the match, Paddy, he said. Well, I then clicked that Paddy was the name of our Neil's coach. And what had happened is they turned up, and no referee had turned up, but Paddy, well as being a coach, was a qualified referee. So the Blythe lads asked him to referee the match. So he refereed the match, and all he got from me was 90 minutes of bloody abuse because he was a homer. And I heard 1 or 2 of the lads as they went off the pitch say, "Hey, did you hear Mitch's dad telling Paddy off?" So, yeah, slightly embarrassing. I can be like that when I get entrenched in a match. All I'd say is that Steve Hasty sits next to us at St James's Park. and he can't help but notice that the seat in front of me has got a very battered back because I kick it quite often. It's a good job the people sitting in front knows. So no, I'm not the best spectator in the world, but when it comes to family, like Neil, God, yeah, awful. And well, the granddads and the uncles wouldn't stand beside us. They just go away somewhere else and leave me to me what I wanted to say. So I think that's what he's getting at.
Brilliant stuff. Good memories. James Wilkinson, then, he posted this a little bit earlier on. He said, ask George to explain the 10-minute flag. He says the 5-minute flag and the golden goal for the people who do not know.
Well, the 10-minute flag's easy. If you're a Gallagher Corner supporter, at the back of the Gallagher, just behind where there was the shed that they used to serve the oxo and that to, there was a flagpole, and on that flagpole was a black and white striped flag. And it stayed there until 10 minutes before the end. And then 10 minutes before final, they took it down. And I was always amazed at how many people used to go home and that flag came down. So the number of games that they would get home and the game would be totally changed. I mean, there were several brilliant matches that turned in the last 10 minutes and they would miss all that. So, yeah, it was just a nonsense. But people religiously, used to go for the bus when the 10-minute flag went down. And it was there until the ground was redeveloped and it disappeared once the first redevelopment started. So the 5-minute flag, well, the only 5-minute flag I knew was that the 5-minute flag was in a similar position, but in a different part of the ground. And I was never sure where the 5-minute flag was, but same thing, last 5 minutes and down the flag came. So yeah, that's my knowledge of a 5-minute flag. The golden goal, well, the golden goal, I'm not sure what golden goal he's talking about. I mean, the golden goal used to be when matches couldn't be settled, first one scores the goal, wins the match. And there were one or two games like that, but there weren't very many. But that was the golden goal in my knowledge. So unless James Wilkinson knows something different, but that's my answer to that one. Is yeah, just all old traditions is all I'd say, particularly the flags. But the 10-minute flag particularly used to really puzzle me. That I can think of some matches. Thinking that in the early 50s, we played Portsmouth in an FA Cup match, and we're 2-1 down until about the last 8 minutes. And then Bobby Mitchell took the match by the scruff of the neck, and in the last 8 minutes scored a hat-trick. So they would get home thinking we'd lost 2-1, and we actually won 4-2. You think, paid all that money for a match and they missed the bit that mattered, But it happened regularly, unfortunately. But all good fun for supporters.
Okay, about 2 minutes away from getting the team news. We will discuss that once we get it. Ask George, says Tom, do you think Newcastle will keep Bruno and Alexander Isak at Newcastle in the summer?
Yes. I honestly can't believe that owners and a club that's talking about a project to take the club forward would sell the two best players we've got. Bruno is already an established star. Isak is there too, but my prediction for Isak is next season, and certainly the season after, he'll be untouchable and out of price for most clubs. I know on websites at the moment, Arsenal fans are virtually saying that he's theirs now. Well, they can forget it. Like I can't see there being enough money anywhere in the Premier League to buy either of those players. Even though we know that in Bruno's contract there's this release clause and all that sort of rubbish, I can't see that happening. I don't think the current manager, the current owners, would wear that. They want the best for Newcastle United. Well, you don't get the best if the first sign of trouble is that you sell your best players. It's just a nonsense. Even with all the the rules, FFP rules, I can't see them doing that. They'll do all sorts of things, but they will not sell. In my view, they will not sell our best players. It would be madness, absolute madness in football sense and the sense of giving the club some sort of face and giving the fans heroes. You know, football's about having heroes. You know, it isn't just a game. It's about 11 heroes. And over the years since I started supporting in the 1940s, I've had my share of heroes, and they keep coming back. You know, obviously there are some that I remember particularly more than others, like Jackie Milburn, as Steve knows, is one of my favourites. Alan Shearer will be a favourite for people for many, many years. Well, I want Bruno and Isak to be my modern heroes. I don't want some other club to get the benefit of those skillful players. I have to say with Bruno, I have not seen a player of either midfield or anywhere else on the field who was prepared to accept the ball in most unusual and dangerous circumstances to get his team out of trouble. Sometimes 4 or 5 defenders around him. And he'd take the ball, couple of shuffle of his hips, and he's clear and he's away. I think the nearest I can get to Bruno is our own Peter Beardsley, another of my local heroes. Peter could do that because he had the pace and the guile. But Bruno's, I think, is even a step ahead of Peter in that sort of regard. You watch him in a match, sometimes 4 or 5 people around him, and Miley or one of the other midfielders or one of the defenders will be in a hole and don't know where to put it. You can see Bruno calling for it. And he calls for it, and as I say, a couple of shakes of the hips, and he's gone. And, you know, and Steve Hasty and I look at each other and say, "Wow, you know, wow." In football terms, you don't sell people like that. If you do, you've got to question their ambition. Well, I don't question the ambition of the PIF people. Saudi Arabians aren't like that. If they've got a project, they'll see the project out. And selling 2 of the best players we've got, arguably the 2 best players we've got, would be madness. I think what they might do with Isak, they might get a very, very top specialist to have a look at this groin problem he's got, and get it put right, because that repeated injury he's got is not good news, and there's a medical solution somewhere. Somebody will have it, and that was the first time that we've won it. So. No, the answer, long answer to a short question. No, I don't see them selling either of those players. And I'd be very disappointed if they did.
Okay, get your questions in. We've got a few more to come. Manchester City taking the bull by the horns at Crystal Palace. They were 1-0 down. They're now 4-1 up, and certain De Bruyne scored 2 really good goals and had an assist for Haaland as well. So, yeah, Man City with 20 minutes to go, 4-1 up at Crystal Palace. And the team news is out, and already a few people groaning because a certain Sean Longstaff is in the team. But at the end of the day, Dubravka, Kraft, Shaw, Byrne captain the team, and Hall, Bruno, Longstaff, Willock, Murphy, Gordon, and Isak. So the subs: Karius, Gillespie, Dummett, Ritchie, Barnes, Anderson, White, Diallo, and A. Murphy on the bench. So yeah, it's a side I think most of us could have predicted. I think the mindset of Eddie Howe there will be that, you know, he's got a couple of players on the bench that can change the game in Anderson and in Barnes. You know, the rest of the bench, you know, Dummett, we've got 2 goalkeepers, of course. Dummett, Ritchie, of course, you know, coming towards the end of their career, as he would have said, and White, Diallo, and Murphy at the beginning of their careers. So it's not the strongest of benches, which we knew it would be. What's your thoughts on that starting lineup?
Predictable, Steve, I've got to say. And doesn't the fact that there's two goalkeepers on the bench tell you an awful lot about the depth of our squad? It just is quite sad. I'm not unhappy about the bench in the sense that we've got two, as you rightly say, two that could change a game. Somebody making a point there, why not another youngster? I think that's a fair point to make rather than two goalkeepers, but never mind. I'd like to see Anderson on there sometime. And as to those two older guys, well, in fairness, I mean, I was critical of Dummett the other night when he gave the penalty away. But the fact is that Dummett and Ritchie, if you wanted two people to put on the field who would die for the cause, that's the two. They'll bleed black and white, those two. So if we're in desperate straits and backs to the wall near the end, they could be useful coming on. But I understand people's frustration about Longstaff. Even the manager admits he's been playing with having to have injections to let him play. I'd ask you all to look at Sean Longstaff in the round, though. Of the midfielders that we've got, apart from Bruno, Longstaff is the one who always thinks forward. His initial move always, his initial pass always is to go forward. He's very, very reluctant to turn and go back or sideways. He's a very positive midfielder, and we might need that today. So I'm worried that he's been injured himself by playing when he shouldn't be playing. Is my worry that it could bounce back and bite him in the bum next year or even after if that foot's not put right. But there's enough pace, there's enough guile in there to worry Fulham. Willock, Murphy, Gordon and Isak, pace to burn. And on the left side, young Hall's, not a slouch out of the blocks either. He's quick and Kraft's no slouch either. So there's pace all over the pitch. Support for the wingers and support for the fullbacks from the likes of Gordon and Murphy particularly. So predictable, I think is the word you use, Steve, and I think that's right. But that doesn't say it's not good enough to beat Fulham, because I think it is.
I agree. I definitely think so as well. The home team line up like this. Here's a test when you don't often read these names out and you hope you get the right pronunciation. Lino, Castagna, Tosin, Bassi, Robinson, Polina, Kearney, Iwobi, Andreas, Willian, and Muniz. And I got away with it there, I think, so I'll leave the bench for you guys to read. Yeah. But it's a strong enough team for Fulham. Funny club, as we mentioned on the Amigos last night. They a bit like Newcastle in a lot of ways, that they've been beaten by teams which they would have expected to get a win against, but then they've demolished teams that they probably thought they might have struggled against. So a bit of a topsy-turvy season for Fulham as well.
Well, in 1 week, they beat one of the top ones and lose to one of the bottom ones. It just, you just can't predict things like that. It's interesting. For me, Fulham at the moment wrap around Kearney, the captain. If he's on form and having a game, they'll have a good game because he gets the best out of the other one beside him, Polina, and that would be the danger. But he's not. He shouldn't worry us that much. And in the back, well, Castagna wide open sometimes as a fullback. So if Gordon goes down, well, whoever goes down that side, Castagna's going to have a busy afternoon. That's for sure, because he can be caught on the hop. But there's no doubt about it. He's good going forward, but his defensive capabilities are questioning. Aobi, ex-Arsenal, but on the wrong side of football at the moment, I think, on the way out rather than on the way up. Same as Willian, great player with Chelsea. On his day, very, very dangerous, but we should have enough to cope with him. Muniz, again, if he's on fire, he'd be a danger, but he's like the team. This week he's on, next week he's off. But it's still not enough in that team to suggest to me that we can't win this one. And I'm still convinced we can.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be a slightly tighter game than some people predicted, but yeah. I think we've got a good opportunity to get 3 points down there today. Mick Terry sent us a question on Twitter, and he says, "Can you ask Sir George what his favourite Western movie is, please?" He said, "Incidentally, mine is Big Jake, which is a John Wayne classic."
It is. That wouldn't be far behind in me. Big Country, I have to say.
Yeah,
Big Country was one of mine at the time when it came out, because it contrasted the sort of American stroke English gentleman in Gregory Peck, the real hard rawhide cowboy in Charlton Heston, and how they battered heads together and to impress the. One wanted to impress the lady, the other couldn't care less about impressing the lady. Just wanted to do his own thing. Big Country was, and I've got to confess, I like the music as well.
Okay, there's your question. 310 to Yuma is mine, says Les.
Yeah, good one. Yes.
I was never into Westerns. So there were some of these names mean very little to me. But there we go. 100 club appearances for Bruno. Jules, you're right. And 100, I think was it 100 goals for De Bruyne today? Maybe it's 100 Premier League goals for De Bruyne. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
A couple of people celebrating things today. Barry Hogan, as always, loves these shows and has put a couple of questions in. George, I've been reading up on Alf McMichael. Was he the best left back the club has ever had? He sounds like an amazing player.
Well, two things, Barry. I was very fortunate because that's period of time I was involved as a kid at the club. Not only was he a good player, he was a gentleman, really nice man. And one of the senior players who used to sometimes turn up on a Tuesday and Thursday when all the kids were in, like people like me, and actually take part in the training sessions. So that gives you a look into Alf McMichael, the man. Beautiful, soft Irish accent. He just oozed class, both on and off the field. In terms of his ability on the field, yes, there'll be very few to better Alf McMichael. You've got to come into modern times to get anywhere near him in many ways. You could say Beresford in his heyday in the Keegan team was close. And Frank Clark's got to be in there somewhere, because Frank Clark was not just a great servant, but an excellent player. But Alf McMichael had the one thing that both of those were maybe lacking slightly. He had amazing pace. Alf McMichael was really, really quick on across the turf. Well, for example, I've seen in training matches when Alf McMichael has been facing Jackie Milburn, who was a powder hole sprinter, and he was the only one that could get anywhere near Jackie when Jackie was in full throw. Pistoni, I like Pistoni, but we I don't know why he seemed to fall out with us and us with him, but he there was a talented player in there, and he lost his way, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, he did. Alan, George's dream team is actually on the playlist for dream teams. He did it with Holly, which was good because it was the youngest panelist and the oldest panelist who did it together. So you'll be able to catch his best 11 to play for Newcastle on that playlist, along with quite a few other people who are still on this channel and some who've moved on. And in the summer, we are going to be doing the worst Newcastle 11 pan, and that's going to be interesting. Believe you me.
Very.
I think a lot of us had some similarities with regards to the best, but the worst might bring up a few names that people have forgotten. So there you go, Alan. Get yourself on the playlist. Something for you to watch. Once Upon a Time in the West, Gary's film as a Western.
No, that's not a proper Western.
Outlaw Josie Wales, says C. Dan Smith.
Good one. Yes, not far behind for me. I've got to see if I can find it on on any of the old channels on Sky at night. If I'm not what can I find out else, I'll go and watch Josie Wales. Yes, it's a good Clint Eastwood one. Yes, yeah.
I'm with Gary. Unforgiven. I think that was Clint Eastwood.
Yes, yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one. I did enjoy that one. Okay, next question. Top Bobby. Good afternoon, George. Were you concerned about the state of the game in the 1980s? Hooligans, dwindling attendances, and of course the European ban.
Yes, is a short answer. It was horrifying, and unfortunately, it still left a stain. If you look at the way the government talks about football, and the authorities talk about football, and football fans don't have very high regard for it, especially in government. We're always the excuse to do something. You know, we'll introduce that, we'll introduce this, and we'll try it on football fans first. And that all comes from the 80s. Yes, it was great concern. And indeed, sitting on the bench at North Shields as a magistrate, I did see a little bit of it when we had the famous riot at North Shields at Appleby Park. Would you believe there was a cup match that went wrong, and the lads ended up fighting on the field, and I had them in court on the morning to sort out. But it was just a reflection of what was happening elsewhere. And where did I go? And I was actually physically frightened. Did I go with our Neil to West Ham? We went to West Ham because Neil had a couple of friends who supported West Ham and could get tickets. We decided to go. When we got off the tube to go down to the bowling ground, or Upton Park, as it was called, we went down 2 lanes of policemen. And on the way down, there were thousands of West Ham supporters throwing things at us. Nasty stuff in bottles, which I don't even want to imagine what was in them. But worse than that, I saw at least half a dozen coppers swinging a boot at the backside of one or two of the Newcastle fans, which is beyond the pale, to be perfectly honest. So yes, there were things happening in the 80s which I'm glad have by and large disappeared. But it's given authorities a chance to, with a stick, to beat football fans with. Any problem, it's got to be football fans. And, you know, and they even used football fans for all sorts of weird things. Like they wanted to assess the amount of illegal tobacco that's coming into the country. And they chose the match at Ipswich. Why? Well, when the ground emptied, they went around collecting all of the empty cigarette packets, and they found it. 80% of the cigarette packets in the football ground had been brought in illegally. They didn't have any registration at all. So, you know, suddenly football fans were the suppliers of illegal tobacco as well. It was not a very good time. And as I say, my experiences just occasionally made me feel a bit nervy. What else? I remember coming back from a cup tie at Walsall. We lost at Walsall, and it was a miserable day. They played on a pitch which was ankle deep in mud, which is St James's Park most days in that period, and we lost 1-0. Now I was in a ramshackle stand, which towards the end there was a big shot by Tommy Gibb, and everybody, you know how they lean forward to look, and everybody leaned forward and then swung back. And as they swung back, the back wall of the stand fell onto the railway line behind. So we suddenly found ourselves walking up the railway line instead of being in a football ground. And absolutely up to our ankles in mud, our trousers filthy in mud. So on the way back, the driver of the car decided he'd had enough. He was going to go into one of the villages just off the A1. I forget the name. Anyway, we went into this village off the A1 and we went to the hotel, and he chose this hotel because it had 4-star AA recognition, and he'd been an AA member for many, many years. We set foot in the door, and before we got 2 steps inside, the manager came and said, "You're not coming in here." And so my friend said, "Why? I'm 4-star AA member. Don't care who you are, you're not coming in here. Look at the state of you." Where he was looking at the mud on my shoes. Yeah, football fans, don't want football fans in here. And he wouldn't let me in. And my friend kept saying, well, you lose your AA status because I'm going to write to the please yourself. But he wouldn't let me in. And, it's just the impression that fixed in people's minds then, and it hasn't gone away, that football fans can be bad news. I just find that all quite tragic, really. And even in the modern day, we've not helped ourselves. I'm going to be controversial now. I find the antipathy between us and our neighbours down the road, the Mackhams, unhealthy. I want to debate with them. Yes. Can we want to beat them? Yes. But do I want to fight them? Do I want to smash them and all the stuff you see on social media? No. They're football fans like us, and they're being treated like dirt. I mean, I'd hate to think our club had been run like that one down there. What they've had to put up with. They don't help themselves either, though, with Bob Murray and his Stadium of Light. It always have more seats than St James's Park. Well, sorry, Bob, you didn't make it, and it still isn't. But that doesn't make me want to go out and punch Bob Murray's lights out. I'm happy to have a debate, and that kind of thing saddens me. And I've got to declare a bit of a soft touch there, because when my knee was seriously hurt, everybody at Newcastle was trying to get me put right, and some friends outside of Newcastle were as well. But Sunderland Club did as well, because their chief scout Charlie Ferguson was a friend of mine, or took me to Burnley as a boy. And Johnny Waters was the Sunderland physio, had a reputation of being the best in the country. And I got the services of Johnny Waters as a favour to Charlie Ferguson. Now, that's amazing to me. And so, and it goes back further than that for me. My dad and I used to go to football every weekend. If there wasn't a Newcastle game, we'd find out where there was a game on. Sometimes it was Gateshead, sometimes it was Sunderland, sometimes it was something else. When it was Sunderland and we go to Joker Park, he and I used to walk through the Tyne tunnel, the pedestrian tunnel, and pick the Sunderland supporters buses up in the Jarrah bus station. And those buses had come from Ashington, packed with Mackhams from Ashington, would you believe? And they knew who we were. And we got a ribbon all the way there and a ribbon all the way back. But it didn't matter a jot. It was just a laugh. It was, I don't think you would dare do that now. There would be blood on the bus walls. Look at the precautions they had to take to get those buses down to the Stadium of Light this time for the cup tie. That all saddens me. But it started in the 80s. Whoever put the question, you were right. It started in the 80s and hasn't gone away, sadly. And given the authorities a stick to beat with, sadly.
Okay, we are halfway through the show. Time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Go to their website, skipsandbins.com. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. Go to their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com or phone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. They're a local company from Morpeth and there are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under the video. Click the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. If you want to help the channel financially, you can pay a one-off £25 fee. You get a cup, a scarf, a pen and a membership card and entry into the NUFC Matters monthly draw. Email john@nufcmatters.com for more details, or if you've got a smartphone, scan the QR code now and it takes you straight to the membership pack. We also support the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a donation virtually today. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. We also do events during the year. NUFC Matters Live will be at the O2 City Hall on Friday the 2nd of August for an evening with Rob Lee, one night in Antwerp. Tickets start at £15 and you can get them from ticketmaster.co.uk. An evening with the entertainers takes place on Friday, the 24th of January 2025 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House in Newcastle. Telephone 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk to buy tickets today. You can also catch me on the North East Footy Breakfast Show live on Toon Radio weekdays 7 till 9 a.m. on DAB, smart speakers and the toonuk.com. Don't forget as well, end of season do Ask George is live on stage alongside Supermac and Gibbo and the Long Sands acoustic set in aid of Dementia Matters. Tickets are a tenner. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com to buy your tickets for £10 today. And the evening with Peter Beardsley is available on voucher. Tickets are £19 and that is the 6th of June. So a summer talking to keep you all entertained. Okay, back to the questions. What questions have we got here? George, have you watched anything of Trevan Sanusi in the under-18s? He looks a class act, reminds me of ASM.
I haven't watched him personally, but I have a couple of friends who follow the under-18s religiously, and that's a name they constantly talk about. That's all I can say. He clearly has something special, because the guys I talk to are no slouches. They know their football and talk about that kid quite all the time. Is how it's. But I haven't seen him myself. Perhaps I should stretch my neck in my bedroom window a bit more because I can see the training ground out my bedroom window. No, as soon as I saw the name, I guessed what they were going to be asking. But no, the same guys who talking about this kid were telling me about Lewis Miley long before he got into the first team, and so they're not bad judges.
Westerns have certainly stirred up a few memories. Davey Eddy says the man who shot Liberty Valance.
Good one, but I wouldn't say one of my best. I liked it, but not one of my best.
Yeah, lots of people have other memories. Alan Thompson says, I know it's modern, but Open Range with Kevin Costner is very high up, and High Noon is mine.
Yeah, Kevin Costner's good, and one or two Costner's movies are quite good. High Noon, brilliant. I mean, I have to say that was at the back of my mind when you asked us that question. But Big Country was right at the front of my mind. So, but High Noon, yes. I mean, and the other thing about High Noon, of course, is like Big Country, I like the music. Well, you can't forget the music out of High Noon, can you? It's stuck on your brain if you've heard it once.
100%. George, did he go to Newcastle and Sunderland games? Most of the old guys I knew in the 70s went to both.
Yes, we did. I've seen my father and I, if we couldn't there wasn't a match at St James's, we'd find somewhere to go. And quite often the only place to go if you want to see good football, first division football, was Roker Park. And we used to go and have a great time. Yes, we used to get ribbed. I mean, we were riding on a bus full of Mackham supporters, even though we're from Ashington, they still give a hard time. But it was good fun. And we used to go in the Fulham end where all the die-hard Mackhams were. And they knew who we were. You know, it was never felt threatened. Yes, we got our leg pulled and there were lots of, especially if we lost or, that sort of thing. But yeah, we used to go, occasionally we'd go to Gateshead if the Gateshead was the only thing. One of the best memories I have of going to Gateshead is there used to be a pub near Redruth Park called the Coffin because of its shape. And my dad always liked the pint before the match. So we'd go in and he'd get his pint and I'd have a lemonade or whatever, because I shouldn't even been in the pub, never mind drinking. And we're standing at the bar, you see, and my dad gets his pint and he wants to get into the ground. So he downs it in one, bang, gone. And the bloke next to him says, "Did you enjoy that?" And my dad says, "Aye, it was great, that." And the bloke says, "So you should, it was my bugger."
Ifty, thank you for your comment. He says, not a question, I just want to say it's brilliant. 4 years following NUFC Matters, from the days when Stephen Mitch went on Instagram. you guys kept me sane during lockdown. Ifty, thanks, mate. And
Yeah,
me and Mitch, just before kickoff today, we're going to do a quick 5-minute video on Instagram, on my Instagram. I think he's going to show us around the Dubai bar. So get yourself on Instagram when me and George finish. Ifty, just a little glimpse of the Dubai Mags bar live. So we're going to do that, I think. Jules says it's going to be lovely to see George again at the and yourself, of course.
Looking forward to that. I am.
Looking forward to seeing you and Dave. Yeah, that would be great. Can't wait to see you and Les. Jules will be a fab night, says Barry. My mum is a Villa fan. My dad's retired Blues fan. Back in the day, they'd regularly go to Villa Park and St Andrews and sit together like many did. Sadly, you daren't do it these days.
It would be difficult. It would be difficult. Yeah. I mean, in more modern times, when our Neil was a teenager, I used to do some sponsorship work with the Sunderland and Shields Building Society. Yeah. And they used to sponsor the Mackhams, and I used to get tickets. So I used to be able to take Neil into the director's box at Joker Park, and sometimes that caused hilarious things. Like they had a vote for player of the match, and you had to put the player of the match on your card on your table and stick it into the glass bowl. And Neil's came out, and the only trouble is he picked the man of the match, the player on the opposition side.
Yeah. Man City win 4-2. They're back into second place, 2 goals behind Liverpool. The pressure on this title race is great. You know what's amazing about that today, though? Man City win 4-2 at Crystal Palace. Phil Foden, who had an absolute blinder the other night and got a hat-trick, didn't even get on the pitch today. He was an unused substitute. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah,
we can only dream of days like that.
Well, yeah, it puts into perspective what Eddie Howe's haven't had to cope with this season, doesn't it? Really puts it into perspective.
If you give Mitch a shout, I'm sure he will be able to accommodate you, mate, and if he's out there when you get to Dubai. Okay, we've got quite a few questions, George, and we've only got 20 odd minutes to get through them.
Come on, then, let's have a go.
Philip Shuttleworth says, ask George, was he at the Doncaster League Cup match when Frank Clark scored his first, and I think it was his only goal? I was.
Yes, so was I. I thought he was never going to stop running. I think he circled the pitch about 5 times.
Okay, fantastic. There will be a whole show with pictures entitled "The Day I Met George Mitchell" after the party, says Jules. Very, very good. Geordie Boy, simple question. He says, who does George want to win the Premier League this season? He's asked the question to everybody in the chat. Who I'd like to see Man City win it. I don't want Liverpool to win it because of Klopp, and it's his last season, and I'd love to see him finish with Nout actually this season because of the way that he's gone on with us. If I had to pick a second team, it would be Arsenal, but I'm not a fan of Arteta because of he's complaining about our game management. And now when you watch Arsenal, it's like watching Newcastle last season. So Man City for me, because the humbleness of Pep Guardiola is, and the fact that he changes formations, and he is the best manager in the Premier League. I want to see Man City do it again. I wouldn't have minded. I don't like Spurs as chairman, George, but I wouldn't have minded Spurs doing it because I quite like Postecoglou.
Postecoglou's great. I mean, I like some of his answers at his press conferences. They're short and sweet, but to the point. Like one of the guys in the press room said to him something about, you've got a chance of winning being fourth. And Postecoglou says, did he get medals for being fourth? Just like that. I thought that's lovely.
he's just very, very honest.
Straightforward.
Straightforward, yeah. There's no doubt about it. George, does Mr. Al Ramayan have the edge on William and Gordon McKeague? Defo City, by the way, Steve, for those reasons. Cheers, John. Chairman. You've seen some chairman in your time.
God, and interesting, and William and Gordon McKeague, of course, are lawyers. And had both in front of us when I sat on the bench as well as at football. The old man was just an old-fashioned gentleman, old army officer who loved football, but had no empathy really with players or fans. I mean, one of the things I remember is Alec Tate was my teacher as well as playing for Newcastle centre forward. great man, lovely man, and was a big help to me with my knee and everything. But he's had an Oxbridge accent. Now you can imagine with Jackie Milburn and people like that in the dressing room, he would stick out like a sore bloody thumb. But if McKeague went into the dressing room, who did he go to talk to? He went to talk to Alec Tate, because Alec Tate had a lovely accent, and that's how McKeague spoke. Gordon McKeague, well, fight very hard for RSPCA and people like that in court. But when it comes to football, round peg in a square hole, I'm afraid, or vice versa. They just hadn't the empathy with fans or playing staff, and just didn't fit. But they got all that went with it. The seat in the director's box and the royal box when we got the cup finals and all that. That's what mattered to them.
Mike Stewart, I did answer this to Alan Thompson earlier. You might have tuned in late. You can check the playlists out on our channel. Go to videos and check the playlists out, and you'll find Dream Team. And if you go through the Dream Team, George's all-time 11, my all-time 11, Mitch's, etc., they're all in there. We did a whole series of them. And the good news is that we are going to be doing the worst 11 in the summer. So keep your eyes out for that. And if you do want to have a bit of a say on what goes on the channel, join the membership. It's $1.99 a month. Just click join underneath the video, and we will be doing a monthly chat to the members, which we did the first one this week. Went down very well. 35 people in the chat giving us their views and opinions on the shows. Okay, JJ, can you recall the cops taking boots off fans if they had segs or hobnails in? No one can remember. I sometimes think I've got it wrong. Did that ever happen, George?
Yes, it did happen. Wow. Absolutely, yeah. And we're back to the 80s again, because that's what was happening. People were going tooled up, as they say. And one of the things they used to do is wear hobnail boots and all of that sort of thing. Yes, I can remember seeing that happen. And they certainly wouldn't let them in. Get their boots off, get your boots back when you come out, but wouldn't let you go on the ground with them. Mm-hmm. No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you don't owe us an apology, Mike. Don't worry, mate. But most of you, some of you won't even know. But if you go into playlists, you can go back through all the shows. All the shows are there, even the live shows. There's some great stuff. If you check the 1980s and 1990s players, there's some interviews with players that they'd even had forgotten I'd interviewed. Some ex-players from, the likes of Pat Howard and stuff like that. Frank Clark's in there. And a lot of our old shows are on there as well. So well worth a check. Dave, when's your next Q&A? It'll be April. I'm saying April. It's April now. May, mate. So sometime in May, I will announce it in plenty time though, for everybody to hear. Getting back to the 5-minute flag, James says was in the old Wooden West stand.
Yes.
The golden goal was that you bought a ticket, and if they matched a minute and seconds, the goal scored, you won.
Yeah.
So there we go. That was what George was saying earlier.
Yeah.
John Askew, often a purveyor of good questions. George, I remember a boss from years ago telling me Tony Green had the edge on Pedro. Green was before my time, but surely he couldn't eclipse Long Benton's finest. What's your view?
Oh, that's a hard one, John, because they were both absolutely brilliant. To compare them's not even easy either, because interesting thing is they were both of short stature, but Peter Beardsley was stocky and strong. Tony Green was slim, like a greyhound. And if there was one area where Tony Green could eclipse Peter, was in straight line speed. Box to box, Tony Green could do that in, 9 seconds flat sort of thing, where it might take Pedro 9.5. But in terms of their ability, gosh, it's a hard one to assess. The big problem is, of course, is that we lost Tony Green critically when he was just coming to the peak of his career. We didn't see the best of Tony Green. What we saw was magic. What we saw was brilliant, but it was just the start. It was just coming to the peak of it. Whereas if we've seen Peter, we've seen twice, and he played his socks off all the time. And arguably, there'd be people who would say he's one of the best players to wear a black and white shirt, and that's hard to argue against, because he he plays heart out during the game, and then just when you think everything's quiet, nothing's going to happen, in the last 5 minutes he'd turn up and score 2 beauties to win the match for. No, very hard one to assess, John. It's a darn good question though. But the difficulty for me is Tony Green was just starting to get to the peak of his career, and we would have seen a lot more of Tony Green. What we saw was world class, but he was going to leave that behind, in my view. But he was brave, too brave, and went in for one tackle too many. And it just took his knee. And that was the end of poor Tony. Where Peter, he was hard enough to take all that and tough. So, yeah, great question, but hard one to separate, really.
Yeah, Geordie boy, you should go back to some of them shows. There was a lot of real talk on there, and I think if you watch them back as well, you can see, you know, how difficult it was at times for me, Mitch, and Steve Hasty, not to give away what we were sitting doing, having these chats with Amanda and Mia Dad, etc., and you know, trying to keep all your spirits up because we knew the takeover was still very much on the go. But fascinating. Geordie boy also says fans are angry on social media again about Eddie Howe's negative comments regarding summer transfers. Do you think he's going to come out and say, yeah, we've got billions to spend and we're going to go crazy? You've got a good point there, Geordie boy, to be honest. Like, you have got a good point. Another question from Phil. Ask George, we need new goalkeepers next season. Would he like Jack Butland or any other keeper? He would be cheaper than anyone from abroad. Any keeper in mind? Aaron Ramsdale's been linked as well, George, of course. Kish Novelli, I think, is the other one, the foreign goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, strength. You do need strength in depth, and you're going to need 2 keepers. It would be nice to have a bit of competition for Pope. Yeah,
Butland has had lots of international experience, which puts him ahead of some of the others. But yeah, the foreigner you mentioned, Steve, is top, well up the list as well. I mean, you've got to have at least 2 people battling out for a position to make that position worth doing. And we've seen this season, we thought we had 2 people doing that now, and we're discovering that we hadn't, because Dubravka, for some reasons, for me, has fallen short this season. And we can, even I can pick out goals that shouldn't have been goals and wouldn't have been goals if Pope had been in goal. So Butland's not a bad shout. I keep hearing about we're having a young goalkeeper in the club already, who's starting to tear up the grass a little bit at Benton in the training ground. That would be nice as well. So two experienced ones, and that young one is the third one, would be brilliant. But we definitely need to look somewhere. Yeah, but Butland's not a bad shout.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer because Eddie's got his work cut out. We're going to have money to spend, but they're going to have to sit down and think about where they're going to spend it, which position's the most important, and of course, depending on who leaves, or the club as well is going to play a big part. So lots of business to be done, ins and outs. James says, ask George, does he think football is better now, or was it better back in the day?
Better now by mail. My reasoning's fairly straightforward. Steve's heard this before. Footballers now aren't just footballers anymore. They're athletes. Have a look at the 6-packs when they walk around St James's Park with their shirts off. I'll tell you something now. In the 1950s, when they were winning cups, the only person on that team that would take his shirt off was Jackie Milburn, because he did have a 6-pack. The others had beer bellies and wouldn't want to show that, I tell you. So yeah, it changed immeasurably. And in my opinion, Jackie Milburn was one of the forerunners. When players realised that being good on the ball and just being a good footballer wasn't enough, you had to be something extra, and the extra you had to be was be an athlete. Look at the top ones. Look at Maradona. Look at Ronaldo, Messi. Have a look at them and see how they're built. They're built like brick houses now. They don't not an ounce of flesh on them. It's all muscle. So yeah, you get pace now. You get the energy and that some of the older ones couldn't have lived with. There's lots about the game at the moment that I don't like, but But in terms of the game itself per se, yes, it's better now.
2 questions from Barry. He says, sounds like Minty will be at the Tyne next season as his loan club has already signed a replacement. Do you think he will get in our squad, or do you think he'll go out on loan again?
No, I'm a firm believer. If he's had that spell out on loan and he's done so well in the Dutch league, surely he's earned a chance to sit on the bench at least with our team. In fact, I'd like to see him getting shots in the first team fairly soon, along with this lad that we've signed from Manchester City. Hey, I think he's going to be something to watch as well.
Yeah, Alfie Harrison, definitely. The other question from Barry was, do you think Mirandina would have worked well playing with our current 2 Brazilians?
Yes, I think he would actually.
He was a good player. Mirandina. He was just here at the wrong time, unfortunately.
Yes. In the wrong team as well. Yeah.
Ended up playing with 2 players who were the same size as him. He needed a big man alongside him. Ended up with John Robertson and John Hendry alongside him.
Exactly.
There wasn't a player over 5'8" up front.
No.
And he had Dave Bessett in goal playing the long ball.
Ah.
Crazy. Dave said, "What do you think will happen in the summer?" Do you think? I guess he means transfer wise.
Well, if we're any chance to move things on, there's got to be a wholesale clear out of people. Some of whom have been good servants, but sentiment doesn't win many points in football these days, or ever did, and so I think there'll be a wholesale clear out, and I can see if they don't get what they want, I can see there being some bargains for some clubs at the end of the season because they'll want them off the wages list, and there's a need for changes. I mean, let's face it. Look at the situation we suddenly have got. It's centre back. Who would have thought that 6 months ago would be in this position? Well, that's now changed everything in terms of buying things because they've got to be thinking about buying a centre back, surely.
Yeah, a lot of people. John saying might be an idea to do this again. Yeah, I needed a show on Saturday, and George has been saying he's more than happy to do it. So, Ask George will become a bit of a feature, I think, because he enjoys doing them. We've said once we get to the end of those with the days, we're going to replace those with the days with this section. So it's nice just to introduce it to everybody again out there. We'll try and get another question in. Do you think Barnes will be labelled as a super sub in the future, or do you think he'd be a regular starter, George?
No, I think when he's got his win back after his injury, he'll be a regular starter. At least I would like to see him be a regular starter. I mean, he's got all the things that I like about a footballer. You've got a left-sided player who was able to come inside on against West Ham and hit a ball as hard as I've ever seen it hit with his right foot past the West Ham goalkeeper. Players like that don't disappear, and I think he'll become a regular in the team, and him and Gordon will be wide men. I would have thought.
Last question, because I've got to jump on Instagram with Mitch for 5 minutes. Does George think 3 in midfield without J7 works? I've got me doubts as a team. Sometimes we're overrun. And does Longstaff deserve a rest, George?
He does deserve a rest. Yes, he does. However, I've got to say to you all, if anybody said to me 18 months ago that we would miss Joe Linton in the team, I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you. I mean, a couple of years ago when Bruce was my manager, I used to come home from the matches and give Joe Linton stick. And my poor wife, my poor Marjorie, used to sit here and say to me, "You don't like that lad, do you?"
Yeah, there was you and 52,000 others though, George. I've got to be perfectly honest. Yeah. Quick show the team again just before you go. Dubravka, Kraft, Shaw, Byrne, Hall, Bruno, Longstaff, Willock, Murphy, Gordon and Isak. That's your starting 11. I hope everybody enjoys the game. George, look forward to seeing you on the fans forum on Monday. Have an enjoyable weekend, and thanks for doing this as always, George.
Thanks everybody for watching and your support for the channel. It really is appreciated. And all of those that come up at the ground and say hello, thank you. I really do enjoy it. It's great fun. And thanks to you, Steve, for hosting it all.
Top man, take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.